Oh, I have to look something up so I don't sound stupid real quick.
A modern podcast where Chris and Mike talk about TV, movies, superheroes, and everything in between. It's time for Superhero Slate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name's Mike Royer.
And this is a spoiler cast for Fox's X-Men Apocalypse.
We finally got another X-Men movie. Who would have thought we would have so many X-Men movies by 2016?
We got 2 this year, and whichever way you want to look at it, it's either the 9th X-Men movie, the 6th X-Men movie, or the 3rd X-Men movie, depending on how you want to break it down. So
it's a wealth of choices.
Yeah, you pick your poison, really pick your poison. So we both saw this movie this week. I believe you saw 3D, you said?
Yes, I did.
On the groundwork here?
Yeah, I had to pick my options based on convenient times because I didn't get a chance to see this on Thursday night as you did. I saw it on a Sunday, so I just had to pick the most convenient time, which was bundled with 3D glasses. So it wasn't my option, but that's what I went with.
Okay, cool. So barring that, we both seen it in 3D. Did you see IMAX?
Oh, there's that train. That train wants to know if I've seen IMAX. No, I didn't see it in IMAX. IMAX theaters are difficult to get to out here if you don't live near them because everything's difficult to get to out here. So usually, IMAX usually isn't in my wheelhouse.
It's not on your menu options for how you can watch movies. That's sad. Well, I saw it in Cinemark's XD or something like that. It's like it's not IMAX, but it's a really, really big screen. So that was kind of cool. But now that we've got it out of the way, we know how we saw the movie. We know how we experienced it. Let's go ahead and say there are spoilers in this. Spoiler cast. So, duh.
Yes.
Don't be surprised. But let's go ahead and talk about the movie, Mike. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, how we felt, what we thought, a little bit spoiler-free. Lay it on us, Mike. What did you think of X-Men Apocalypse?
All right, so this movie is just incredibly average. I think it kind of suffers a little bit from not superhero fatigue because people talk about that all the time, saying we're going to get fatigued with these superhero movies. I don't think that's the case. I think it's X-Men fatigue. We've had so many different opportunities to engage with these characters from different ages, different alternate realities, however you want to phrase it. But yeah, I'm just getting kind of tired of them, you know. Like I don't like I believe you said yesterday on our news episode, this is like the 3rd version of Cyclops that we've seen. So it's just like it's like they're rebooting the universe but keeping it all together. So we haven't really had a fresh restart. So everything just kind of seems kind of really murky. But I think that kind of makes for kind of an average movie. I don't really have a whole lot of investment in the story and what's going on. I think that's case in point with the lackluster villain that Apocalypse was. You know, even though we got to see Apocalypse and, you know, head to toe before we ever saw him on screen, you know, with movie posters and stuff like that, I kind of thought maybe somehow during the movie he might get a little bit more exciting. Maybe he'd transform because Apocalypse's powers are kind of all over the place in the comic book lore. But I was hoping maybe we'd get some shrinking or growing on the screen, but, you know, we just got that in some sort of a mental capacity, like literally inside someone's brain. And I wish they would have explained his powers a little bit better. I was never really sure if he was mind controlling people or he just had really, really strong powers of persuasion and what they were taking from the comic books and what they weren't. So, yeah, I think just my biggest problem with this movie is I'm just fatigued with the characters, and the best way to get me over that is to bring in a new character, you know, like a new villain, Apocalypse, and make him really, really awesome. And he was just, I just didn't really care about him, honestly.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like you didn't hate it, but you're not in love with it.
Yeah, like you say a lot on the show, it didn't offend me. I didn't run out of the theater like cursing the gods on my hands and knees looking up at the sky like I did with earlier comic book movies this year. But yeah, I mean, I think that's another reason why like movies like Deadpool and these other Fox franchises outside of the X-Men are going to do well and have done well is because they're different. They're just different characters, but we still playing in this mutant space. So that being said, I'm sure we'll talk about specific moments. There are definitely two very, very wonderful moments in this movie that I think that will let me recommend this movie to people seeing it on the big screen. But if it weren't for those, maybe not so much. But what about you, Chris? What do you think? I think we're both kind of feeling this average zone, but I kind of want to know how you got there.
So I mark X-Men Apocalypse as forgettable. Mostly, I saw it Thursday night. I'm having trouble remembering standout moments. I guess 4 days later. I do have a copy that someone filmed in the theater that I've watched through to kind of like maybe refresh myself a little bit. But of the 9 X-Men movies, and I count 9, I count them all. You can't have ones without the others. This lands directly in the middle for me. I don't find it horrible. I don't find it bad. I think the first 45 minutes, the first half of the movie, or I guess a third of the movie, are great. I feel like very entrancing. Like, okay, you've got some great characters, like some good setups here. Let's go with it. However, the last third is pretty standard fare. There's nothing new here that Bryan Singer or Simon Kinberg has brought to the table that we haven't already seen in other X-Men movies. And because of that, I think it's not a bad movie, but this is not a movie that we're going to be talking about in 6 months. And be like, okay, this is awesome. Now, on that same regard, I didn't care as much for Days of Future Past as everyone else does. I don't think it's a great movie. I think that's an apology film for X3 and Origins because it resets the timeline and resets it like, oh, well, Bryan Singer didn't do this, so he has to reset all this stuff to get ready for his new world. And I think this is a great follow-up to First Class, and you can tell there are so many First Class references in this. Like, I feel you watch First Class and you watch this movie, great sequel. Like, that it follows up perfectly with that. But at the same time, I feel they've added too many new characters who don't do anything. They're just there for a little bit, and then all of a sudden they're very important in the last 5 minutes. And it's not enough setup for me for them. So I think the first third to half is great. The second half to third is just paint by numbers, if you would, of an X-Men movie. However, you're all right. There are some great moments that stand out. And I was listening to a review earlier, and I didn't think about this, and so I can't take credit. But some of those great scenes, you can take those out of the movie, and the movie would still go on. And I think we're going to talk about those here in a little bit. But I think Oscar Isaac did a great Apocalypse. I mean, we kind of shit on him a little bit for how he looked, but we did the same thing with Quicksilver in Days of Future Past. Apocalypse was not a bad character. I just don't think the movie did enough with him. I think Simon Kinberg and Bryan Singer have been in this too long, and they have their favorite characters, and they will always cater to those characters. Looking at you, Phoenix and Mystique, so we just need to get them out of there. Get some new people in here. Let's re-inject it with a new director and some new, not new characters per se, but a new director who can focus on this team mentality and go for it. I think you said yesterday Civil War had a bunch of characters and everyone got a moment, but in this one, not everyone got that moment, and they were just kind of shuffled to the back and moved along.
Yeah, exactly. So, and if we want to specifically say standouts that seemed like they were going to be standouts, because we've seen them all over the marketing material, it would be definitely Psylocke. Psylocke was billed almost like above some of the characters that had actual lines in the movie. She said like 3 things, and she had a few interesting choreographed fight scenes. But beyond that, she was pretty worthless in the film.
She kind of just walked out at the end too. She's like, I'm done with this movie.
Yeah,
I'll see you guys later.
And there was this kind of bizarre, almost like double take that she took. She like looked over her shoulder and was like, "Nope, I'm not going to be a part of this," and walked away. And then we cut back to them, and then we cut back to her again. But this time, when she looks away, she's behind flames. So it's just like, "Oh, we get it. She's going to be like a bad guy or something like that." So, the movie did have some weird moments like that in there, but. Yeah, just characters that were not utilized well. There was definitely
Jubilee. I'm going to point out Jubilee before yeah. Down there, because you see her and like, oh my gosh, they're going to make Jubilee look awesome. They cut out her entire scenes. Like, she's just there. She never uses her powers once. She went to the mall, and that was about it. So, and the first time we ever met her was in a mall in the cartoon. So that was it. I just feel like they wasted some of these characters pretty bad.
Yeah, and it was just like...
Oh, and Angel. I'm sorry, Angel as well.
Yeah, one thing that I was trying to figure out, Apocalypse's main goal in the movie before he kind of gets rolling is he needs to get his 4 horsemen, and he specifically says, I don't remember the exact line, but he says, I am looking for the strongest mutants on this planet, take me to them. So, okay, Storm, I could get that. Storm is really, really powerful. She's kind of young in this movie, but I was just like, she has untapped potential. She's going to be very strong one day, so I could see what Apocalypse sees in her. He goes to Psylocke. We don't know a whole lot about Psylocke yet in the movie, so maybe there's something there. He senses something in Psylocke, but then Psylocke's like, oh, I got the guy for you. I'm gonna take you to this mutant who basically is a drunk, has a messed up wing. It's just like, why does he even want Angel as a horseman? Like, I get it that he can unlock the potential inside of him and give him like metal wings and stuff, but it's just like, you could have picked like any other mutant out there. And I was thinking, like, why didn't he just pick Xavier too? Xavier would have been a great horseman, but apparently I guess nope, I gotta stop at 4. Once I get the 4, that's just too much. The crew's getting too big over here.
Well, I think the thing is, like, he again doesn't control him per se. Kind of like an example, I kept thinking like kind of like Hive in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this season, where he didn't control them, but he kind of gave them what they wanted. And so I think Xavier, the ultimate plot with Xavier was better than making him a horseman. He's like, I'm going to take over your body and get your awesome powers. Was better than making him a horseman. But Angel had one cool moment. His body mutilation scene when he was transforming into Archangel was his best moment. Like, he didn't say anything, but like the way his ribs popped out of him and folded back in, and how the metal wings came out, I thought that was really, really well done. But if you look at, out of the 4 horsemen, only Magneto had any time to shine. Yeah. The other 3 are kind of just like, well, we can change these out with anybody else, but we're choosing 3 popular characters that everyone knows, and we're just going to waste them. Even Storm felt wasted. I hate to say it, but Storm was thrown under the bus. Angel was thrown under a plane. And Psylocke, I'm surprised you didn't point this out. I thought her psychic katana was the shittiest CGI graphics I've ever seen.
Yeah, nothing was too impressive was how she was fighting. I mean, I was hoping for maybe some unique choreograph, but basically it's just like, oh, instead of a real sword, let's just give it a glowing sword. She didn't do too much unique things with it. Yeah, she had that whip at one point in time, but the whole time I'm just thinking, like, why do you have that whip out and trying to choke a beast? Like, just take your sword and just like plunge it into him, just kill him. So things just didn't seem very thought out there. But yeah, if we're talking about the characters, you brought up Magneto. It seemed kind of strange that we have to give Magneto a family and then kill his family for him to have any motivation in this movie. I get that he's like trying to like move on with his life, and even though his scene in the forest is pretty touching that he loses his family, and then I like it when he finally gets some metal back in his hands and he kills those guys. That was kind of cool, but it's just like I didn't really get a chance to know your family. Like, yeah, I get it that your family died, but like we don't know anything about them. So, and then time is a little hard to figure out how long it's been going on in the movie. So it's like he has a family now, and I guess it's been about 10 years.
They've confirmed the last 3 movies have been 10 years apart. So.
Yeah, so I don't know. So I just didn't like that motivation so much for Magneto. And Magneto and Xavier, they're always doing this push and pull thing in the movies. In the early X-Men movies, it was very, very clear. Magneto was like the bad guy, but that had good intentions, and Charles was the good guy with good intentions. And that those struck ahead, and it was pretty obvious what side they were on. But Magneto in these past couple of movies, like, he's been good, then he's not good, then he is good, then he's not good. It's just like, don't you understand what he's doing here? Just like nip it in the bud, do something with him. Things aren't going well. And he kills so many people at the end of this movie. I mean, we could probably talk about the collateral damage here for the second, since Magneto causes most of it. and they let him walk off scot-free at the end of the movie. Like, oh, don't worry, Maria McTaggart was there and saw that he stopped Apocalypse, so we can all be happy that Magneto's a good guy. It's just like, no, Magneto killed a bunch of people digging up all that metal inside the Earth. So it just kind of seems like, what's going on here?
Well, I think for the title being Apocalypse, it never once felt like an apocalypse. To use a quote from the, I guess, the Independence Day trailers, is they like to go for the landmarks.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all you see. And not once, I mean, I cared more for Magneto and his family, but at the end, I'm like, the world's really not in trouble. I don't think anything's in trouble here. This damage is very superficial. You're looking at it from a distance. You're just seeing buildings collapse. You're not seeing people die. And I felt it's intentional to show that Magneto's not a horrific killer, but at the same time, it's like, well, no one's really going to end up dying here. Like, nothing huge is going to stick. They're going to clean it up, and it'll be good to go in 10 more years.
One scene that I thought was really, really cool in the movie, because when we were watching these trailers, we saw scenes of nukes being launched, and we saw destruction, and we didn't really know the context of all that, so it's just like, oh, there's nukes going to be involved, but something really unique happened at the beginning of the movie where all the nukes were shot up into space, and I thought that was really, really cool, where Apocalypse is just like, no more weapons, we're going to, like, even out the playing field and get these big nuclear warheads and take them out of the equation. And I thought, like, okay, we're actually not going to see the destruction of the planet. Apocalypse wants to rule the planet. He doesn't want to destroy it. But then, nope, he's just going to go ahead and destroy it like a different way. Like, if Magneto was just going to rip the Earth apart, why didn't he just go ahead and use the warheads against the planet? So just weird things like that kind of happened. And it was like a cool scene that just kind of got undermined later in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have too much of a deal with the story overall, except at the end, it kind of got. I felt this movie was going to be X3 all over again. Too many mutants, a lot of really weird destruction. But it was really cool to see how how Apocalypse kind of like shifted, like created things out of the air, like, and that sandy look was really cool. Like when he created armor for everybody. So I was more okay with that sandy destruction look, because he wasn't disintegrating things, he was reforming them, which was awesome. But at the same time, at the end, it was just a CGI spectacle. He's like blocking Magneto's metal, he's blocking Cyclops' blast, and then the Phoenix has to come in and do her thing, which was not the Phoenix payoff was not worth it. Like, she did not deserve to turn into the Phoenix at the end of this movie.
Yeah, and they never really have any clear plan through this movie how they're going to stop Apocalypse. They're basically just like, at the end of the movie, they're like, let's just go save the professor and get out of there and then recoup. And then they decide, okay, our plan is just going to be to launch everything that we have at Apocalypse. They don't really outsmart him necessarily. I thought it was really asinine, and I did one of these like motions in the theater with my hands, like, what the fuck is going on, when Charles was just like, oh, wait a minute, that's right, we're linked together in our mind, I'm going to use that against him. It's just like, well, that's great, but you're also linked in his mind like 40 minutes earlier in the movie. Why did it take you this long to figure that out? What epiphany like suddenly popped up that let you go ahead and do that now? It was just kind of weird. And then Jean pops up, and okay, so I'm familiar with X-Men lore. I'm sure I'm no savant out there, but I was always under the impression that the Phoenix Force has to come and visit Jean. But in this movie, it seems like it's just always been inside of her. So is that just what we're doing in the movies now?
Well, that's not now. That's always been the movies. These X-Men movies will not touch space to save their lives. And that's what they should have been doing, is saying the space people, the Shi'ar specifically, and all this space stuff the X-Men deal with, they never will touch in these movies. They're scared of space. But since X-Men 1, the very first X-Men movie, they've been building up that Jean is essentially, her real form is the Phoenix kind of persona. And she just doesn't know how to control it yet as it manifests. So I think they're going to go with that, and they're going to stick with it because that's what they're going to do. Hopefully, maybe they go into space or visit, or like have a visit from space people saying, hey, this person has been maybe reincarnated as a Phoenix kind of deal, and we need to deal with it. That'd be kind of interesting. But yeah, no, I think Jean Grey was a waste in this. I don't think Cyclops was very good in this either. Speaking of redoing characters, however, I want to talk about the ones I did enjoy. Nightcrawler, awesome.
Okay.
again, I think just like in X2, he stole the show. Like, he was funny when he needed to be. Had that young innocence. He didn't know what his powers could do or couldn't do yet. So I thought Nightcrawler was awesome in this. I don't know how you feel about it.
No, Nightcrawler was definitely cool. Nightcrawler's always been a favorite character of mine, and it was kind of cool seeing him young. It was kind of interesting seeing him wheeled into that arena at the beginning of the movie in that box that basically he's just like a creature that humans have taken for themselves. So I like that he finally was able to spread his wings, even though that should be a good way to describe Angel. But I thought he was cool.
Yeah, he was cool. Let's talk a little bit about one thing that I know we agree on: Quicksilver's action scenes.
Yeah.
So again, in Days of Future Past, there was one Quicksilver action scene, which was really cool. I'm glad they don't do the motion blurs with Quicksilver in this. I don't mind the Joss Whedon one at all. He's awesome, but he served his purpose. This one's a different version. And I think you said yesterday that Bryan Singer should go make a Flash movie.
Yeah, exactly. He handles these scenes so well, and I think everybody out there will agree. In the last two movies, the Quicksilver scenes are the standout scenes, and it's due to this scene that I think I can recommend it to people to say, it's not going to be worthless to go to the theater to go see this scene. And I think of this scene totally independent from the entire movie. Like, I want this 2 or 3 minute clip or whatever it is, just like ripped from the movie and like thrown up on YouTube, and I'll just go back and watch it every once in a while because it's that good.
That's exactly what, again, the review I said earlier, he's like, this scene will make a great YouTube clip. However, the point of the scene is great. It looks awesome. It's funny. And it goes a lot longer than I expected it to. I think it's like 4 minutes or so. But they place it at the wrong part of the movie.
Yeah.
This is the scene where Havoc dies.
Yeah,
and the original First Class, and like this is how they punctuate that. Like,
yeah, and I think bringing up this scene can also touch on two things that in the movie that really rubbed me the wrong way. So this scene was initiated, like you said, by Havoc dying, but Havoc dies by basically an accident, and it's really frustrating that. He's going. Apocalypse had just captured the professor. He's furious, and he doesn't want him to escape. So Havoc sends out a blast, and oops, accidentally his blast hits
experimental.
Was it the plane?
Engine.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like a core or what he hit, but that just so happened to just coincidentally be on the exact other side of his portal, and then it blows up the school. And I'm just thinking, okay, like it makes a cool scene, but it's just like, I don't like that this was sprung by totally 100% an accident. So that's one thing that I really couldn't get over. I think it would have been better if like they showed a scene where like Apocalypse like made it happen. Like maybe he used like some form of like telekinesis and like shifted the plane or moved the blast or something like that. But nope, Apocalypse just shows up, takes the professor, and he's like, I'm outie, and then you guys fucked yourselves over. It wasn't me that blew up your school, it was you.
Yeah, so yeah, it was, again, the school blowing up, a typical fashion, much like the Wayne Mansion blowing up or burning down in the Batman movies. Very, very typical. I think even Deadpool said, isn't this a surprise that the mansion's not blown up? But what's really, again, sad that, like, Havoc died. He's one of the only people who's been in all three movies, one of the few. And he died to be replaced by his brother, essentially, Cyclops. But that was capped off with Quicksilver, like, oh, I thought I saved everybody, kind of thing.
And then like the scene was like so cool, so I just try to think of it independently. And then,
exactly.
But outside of that, Quicksilver is still one of my favorite characters in the movie because he's really fun. He has some really punchy lines. He can really interject moments of levity just when they're captured in the. I guess in the Canadian wilderness in that fortress. He has some funny scenes in that cell. But also his motivation in the movie is just kind of weird. It's like we found out that he was Magneto's son, but that basically had no impression on the movie whatsoever. I thought it was actually going to come up and be a big deal. Like, holy crap, Magneto, guess what? Your whole family isn't dead. You have one family member here. But nope, we're not even going to let you know because it was a weird tagged on thing in the last movie. Like, it was a joke. Like, oh, I think I think your mother. What did he say? I think he's like, oh, your mother looks familiar or something like that.
No, he's like, my mom knew a guy who could do that.
Yeah, something like that.
He could mess with metal.
Yeah, so it just seemed like a joke in the movie, almost like a wink, wink, nod, nod. Hey, if you're an X-Men fan out there, you know that in the comic book these characters are related. I think in the movies they just shouldn't have made them related. If they weren't going to do anything with it, just make them totally different. I don't think that needed to happen.
Yeah, I agree. But I think the last thing I just want to touch on Quicksilver is he did kick some ass on Apocalypse at the end too.
Yeah, that was really, really cool.
Out of nowhere. I did not expect. I mean, like Quicksilver, he got his one scene. I'm like, great, that's all the slow motion they're gonna do. But then he whooped some ass on Apocalypse, and that was really cool to see him do that. Before he kind of got not dismantled, but like disarmed, I guess, dislegged,
yeah. So I like, so we were talking at the beginning that there were kind of two standout moments in this movie, and that was one. And I'm just gonna assume that you know what we're gonna bring up here with the second part of the movie that was amazing and standout.
Before we jump, we have to talk about Pizza Dog because I talked about this yesterday.
That's right, Pizza Dog. Sorry. So have your
there's a dog. There's dog eating pizza in this scene, and Quicksilver saves him, and at the end, oh, he's funny, he's still eating pizza. But in the Hawkeye comics, there's a character, Hawkeye has a dog he calls Pizza Dog, and in the credits, this dog was Pizza Dog. So I'm like, this is the biggest Marvel crossover event that no one's paying attention to. So
I'm glad you picked up on that reference. That's awesome.
Yes, yeah, I thought of that during the movie. I thought it was really funny. So, but yes, the Quicksilver scene actually led right into this next scene you're about to talk about.
Yeah, and that was basically the reveal of Wolverine in his classic, I guess, Weapon X get-up. Yeah. Yep. So, and that was really, really cool because we all knew Wolverine was going to be in the movie, but we didn't really know at what capacity. We knew it was kind of more of a cameo role, but we didn't really know when it was going to pop up. So when they walk into that room and they're just like, oh, there's an animal in there, and I was just like, oh yeah, this is going to be awesome. And then they do that slow pan from foot up to his head, and I was just like, oh, this is so sick. And then he just goes, it's Wolverine, it's Hugh Jackman in the Weapon X getup, and he just goes on a rampage, like pretty graphic. I think it's the most graphic we've ever seen him in a PG-13 role.
Yeah, so there was no hardly any blood splatter, so I think that's how they got away with it. But this is the most brutal he's been in any X-Men movie, I think, even his own, because he just went to town on all those soldiers. And what was really weird is he looks like he was in a Velociraptor chamber from Jurassic Park at first, but he's also in the room with the power outlets for the whole building. I'm like, why did they put their most dangerous person in a cage next to the electrical outlets for the whole building?
Yeah, and that was
just a weird location place.
And that's actually one thing that I kind of leaned over to my wife in the middle of the movie, is when they end up rescuing the other crew from inside the jail cell, they do it by blasting the door with Cyclops' vision. And I lean over to my wife and I was just like, wait a minute, I thought the plan was to blow up the generators. Why did they not blow up the generators? That was the whole reason of going into that room. You blow up the generators and then that fixes everything. And then they just glossed over that idea. They're like, oh, we got a maniac with claws running around. Let's go change our plan. I don't know. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, I agree. But I think this is something to say. Again, this whole movie could have taken this scene out, and it would have been the same movie. Because they would have just blasted the doors open. They didn't need Wolverine. But it was cool to see him with like his longer, mulletish looking hair. He had a moment with Jean, kind of maybe setting up the future kind of with her a little bit, like the old trilogy had. And sending him off in there. So we don't know where he's going to go. But that does tie in very, very closely to the post-credit scene. Do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to talk more about
go
Weapon
ahead
X slice it? Okay. So the post-credit scene actually went on a lot longer than I thought it would. It's a full 90 seconds, and I'm like, I'm not used to post-credit scenes being more than 30 seconds. Like, what's going on here? And these suits walk through the facility and take a vial of Weapon X's blood and put it in a suitcase with other vials, unknowing what we don't know what they are, and then the case shuts, and that's what the reveal is. It says Essex Corporation, and this is one of those things that not a lot of people are going to get just by looking at it. This isn't a Spider-Man thing where people are like, oh, it's Spider-Man and his logo, that's cool. This is a reference to Nathaniel Essex, a character long known in the comics / cartoon TV series as Mr. Sinister. And I had to explain this to someone in the theater, actually, as they didn't know. But Mr. Sinister is known for being very experimental on mutants and creating new mutants and kind of like, I guess, playing geneticist with them. He's known for being white. He has a big red diamond in his forehead for some reason. And I think... Now, we were talking about this before this. You didn't know why this is important.
Well, it was more like the times that I have bumped into Mr. Sinister, I think most people out there would say was from the 90s X-Men cartoon, which usually was pretty faithful to the comic books, or the storylines at least. And if I remember correctly, I think Mr. Sinister was more of a pawn for Apocalypse, at least in this scenario. So I'm just kind of curious, like, I would think, we'd get the Mr. Sinister movie first, and then it would lead up to Apocalypse. But, obviously it's a cinematic universe, so they can do what they want. So now I'm kind of curious maybe how they're going to build up Mr. Sinister.
Yeah, so to me, my interactions with Mr. Sinister, again, was the cartoons, but also in the Ultimate Universe. He's actually I would say a herald of Apocalypse in that one. He's the only person who can see it. He's working to create mutants to do it, and so on and so forth. But he's known mostly in the comics for creating a group of people called the Marauders. And the Marauders are in the Deadpool video game, by the way, if you guys are interested. Characters known as Vertigo, Riptide, Blockbuster, and Arclight. But to me, this is actually setting up the Wolverine 3 and not X-Men, whatever the next one's going to be. I don't think the next one's going to be X-Men Sinister or whatever it is. It's Wolverine 3. I think he is the villain in Wolverine 3 for two reasons here. The vial of Wolverine's blood means that and Mr. Sinister's geneticism means he's going to create a clone of Wolverine. And the best-known clone of Wolverine that we know right now is X-23, the female version that I think, will take over for Wolverine in the cinematic universe once Hugh Jackman bids farewell in Wolverine 3. Also, with Mr. Sinister showing up, the Marauders and Mr. Sinister are actually labeled on Wikipedia as the villains of Wolverine 3. So I think this is very much, again, Wikipedia, there's no source, there's no confirmation of this, but whoever put it in there says the Marauders and Mr. Sinister are in, Wolverine 3. So that's where I think they're going to fit in. They're showing us the next movie more so than the next X-Men group film.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think talking about the upcoming movies, I think the biggest, I guess not problem with the movie, but something that kind of let me down was after the movie was over, I'm not really excited for the next X-Men movie. I'm not super hyped on what villain they might bring in or what new things that they might try to accomplish. I'm more like, yeah, that next Deadpool movie is going to be awesome. Yeah, I want to see the final Wolverine movie. But yeah, as for the next X-Men movie, I'm not I'm not jumping up and down waiting for that trailer, in a year or two.
Yeah, so I agree. We talked about this. One of the Fox movies has recently moved to June 2018, and I'm pretty sure it's the next X-Men movie. I think two things need to happen for me to get excited. Simon Kinberg has to go, and probably Bryan Singer has to go. I think Singer now he's got two good movies and two okay movies under his belt, but I think once someone's in there for too long, they'll ruin the whole series. Again, I'm going to liken this to Transformers. Michael Bay is working on the 5th Transformers movie, and how good are they getting, Mike? Not very good.
All I can do is laugh.
Yeah, so that tells you there. So I think they need to go. They need to get someone fresh in. They need to focus. Again, if they do go to the 90s, that's fine, but get rid of... They're so focused on Magneto, Xavier, and Mystique / Jennifer Lawrence. They don't care about anybody else. They killed the Blob. They shoehorned Angel and Storm in there. Angel's one of the original X-Men. They just want to see the Phoenix. They want to see Cyclops, and they want to see Nightcrawler. That's all they care about. And I think someone needs to come in there who can deal with groups of characters better and give us something good. And I think this movie is such a cock tease, and I'm going to say that because you see the whole movie in the trailers. If you go back and look at it now, the whole movie was in the trailers. and they don't get their awesome costumes until the last, like, 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And guess what they're fighting, Mike? Who are they fighting at the end there?
Sentinels.
Sentinels, which should have been the last movie, by the way. We should have had way more Sentinel fights in the last movie. I'm getting very expressive with my hands right now because that bothers me so much. There's so much, like, this movie, like, the last third of the half third of this movie is all fan service. Like, there is nothing new or innovative. It's all fan service. We got Dark Phoenix, check. We got, the Sentinels and all their costumes in the last 5 minutes, check. Like, there's nothing cool there going on. And again, you're right, the next one's not that high up on my list of stuff unless they get some more people in there to really bring it up.
Yeah, and this whole movie, more specifically towards the ending, like you were talking about, all rallies around Mystique being this like hero that all the mutants look up to. And it's basically just the movie going like, hey, Wolverine's not in the movie anymore. We need to replace this like focal center of the movie with Mystique. And I just don't think the character is as likable as Wolverine was. Like some people did have complaints in the other X-Men movies that, they're not X-Men movies, they're Wolverine movies. And I think that goes to show you not necessarily that Wolverine is the most interesting mutant. It's just that these movies decided that, we need to make a character kind of more of the focal center so we can bring the story down a little bit, so we can like focus on characters and not necessarily what's going on all around them. So they just need to find a way to do that. Don't branch out so much. Give us maybe like 2 or 3 characters that we can really focus on, and then they can touch the lives of these other characters and we can get to know them a little bit more. In this movie, they basically just pick 3 characters and they're just like, hey, we're only going to tell your story, and everybody else is not even going to have lines. They're not even going to say anything.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we also need to see, Xavier sending his X-Men on missions. We don't see them going on missions very often, and it's kind of sad.
Yeah, because it's taking
some of the cool stuff.
Yeah, and it's taken them so long to build up like the X-Men. I know we've gone back in time when we're trying to rewrite history and stuff like that, but I feel like we've never really gotten to like the X-Men. Like we had the X-Men in like the original trilogy, like they were a team and a crew, but it's taken us so long to get back around to that point in time. Whenever we've had a team of X-Men formed in this new version, it's always just been temporary. Like, there's a threat coming up, we better make a team because we need a team right now. There wasn't always one there. So I feel like at least in the next movie, we finally have the X-Men. They are a crew that lives at this school, and they're there to protect and serve. It's finally X-Men. So that team is already going to be there for the beginning of the movie. So hopefully that helps out the next one.
Yeah, I totally agree, and just set some other stuff back. Don't blow your wad on everything in one movie. That's something I use in my written reviews. Like, can't really do Dark Phoenix coming about. They already showed us that she is that in this one, So yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I don't hate the movie, but I'm not in love, and I feel like it's hard for me to go back and remember cool things about this movie, other than the fact it's a first-class sequel to me, not better, more so than Days of Future Past, and it's got some cool scenes, but overall, it's compared to what the great things we've got this year. Again, Fox did great with Deadpool, and Civil War had just as many characters, if not more, and did a better job with them. I think it's better than Batman because it didn't again offend me, but I'm not sure if I'd say go out and watch this in theater unless you want to see those scenes on the big screen, like you said.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those things. If you go over to a friend's house and they want to put something on and they want to watch Apocalypse, like, yeah, go ahead. Let me know when when the Quicksilver scene pops up, and I'll grab a slice of pizza and sit down on the couch and join you. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to necessarily say it was a disappointment. It's just kind of average. I'll circle back around to wrap things up on my end. That it just felt like they could have done. They could have done more if they maybe try to do something new and different, refresh it up a little bit. This franchise has needed, I would say, a hard reboot, and they're trying to do that with time travel. And even though I think Days of Future Past worked out well, I'm just starting to get the fatigue of all these same characters over and over again. I don't think it's going to happen just because the superhero movies are making so much money, but I would almost like Fox to not make an X-Men movie maybe for 4 or 5 years and then come back to it and just get a new director, totally new vision, just go in with something, a totally different feel, and just kind kind of reboot the X-Men from the ground up again in a proper time. Like it's just kind of weird having these period X-Men movies because it feels like they're trying to move them to a current day and age, but I'm just thinking they can't age these actors that much. It's just not going to work. So like, where are these characters going to end up? It all feels kind of temporary. So I'm looking forward to Deadpool 2. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, Fox has got better movies coming out that we're more excited for than the next X-Men movie, but at the same time, I will probably buy this and put it on my shelf with all the other X-Men movies I have.
You completionist.
I am. It's a problem. But I think, to me, I don't know. I it's in there with Days of Future Past to me, but I don't love Days of Future Past. I think First Class is the best movie of this new trilogy. But it's middle ground. It's very middle ground, very average. You didn't blow me away, but you didn't make me go out and hate the world afterwards. So, well, that's how I want to end my review. Like, it's definitely a solid 5 out of 10 if I was to give it a number score. So, any last words from you, Mike?
I think that's basically it. I don't think I'm going to be watching this one again anytime soon when there's so much competition out there with what I could watch on my screen instead. But I think the best way to say it is just like what you did. It didn't offend me.
Yeah, so I guess on that note, Mike, if people want to know about, you watching movies and what you think of them, and maybe even some funny comics on this. I'm looking forward to you maybe getting some ideas for your Pickled Comics on this. Where can they find that at?
Well, you can follow me at Mike Royer Design on Twitter and Instagram, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, outside of this podcast, you type up reviews with your fingers on a keyboard, and you post it on a website. If people want to know where they can find those written reviews, where can they follow you?
Well, now you set me up for such success here. You can find my written reviews on comicui.com. We have Facebook and Twitter accounts as well. Or you can go over to Twitter and follow me on Valdan, Valdan, to see what I wear to these comic book movies. Because I know everyone's interested in what shirts I wear to these large events. I gotta look fancy. Gotta look good. So I guess in the meantime, if people want to be super fans and listen to our regular scheduled programs, where can they find that at?
Well, as I always say at the end of all of these recording sessions, is you can always find us and visit us at superheroslate.com. That's the best place to find the links to everywhere that we jack up and upload the show, which is iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Tumblr. You can subscribe to us and get us directly in your email inbox, and you can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. If you're a fan of the show, maybe head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. It helps us out, helps us find some new listeners. And if you're a super fan of the show, just share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, copy and paste that link, throw it up on someone's Facebook wall. And I guess that kind of wraps things up. I think the next spoiler cast we're going to do is, I believe it's Turtles, right?
Yes, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles per overwhelming request. Yes.
Yeah, I broke you down.
You did. You got me to the point. I'm like, well, might as well just do it now and get it over with. But no, I'm looking forward to it. June and July, we were looking at some movies before this. Don't look too bad. I think we're gonna have a busy summer, and this is another way to kind of enjoy that, I guess.
Yeah, well, I hope everyone else keeps having a good summer. Hope everyone had a good Memorial Day weekend. It's always nice having the extra long weekend because that means you have an even shorter work week coming up. And we'll see you guys next week for the next Superhero Slate.
Yep, see you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.
Miss Sinister. Ooh la la, let's get Miss Sinister in the next one. I scrolled past a well-endowed picture of Miss Sinister.